Welcome to the Freedom Camp Podcast, rooted in truth, growing in freedom, and built on the belief that you weren't meant to grow alone. Each week, I'll share honest stories, insights, and simple questions to help you explore the unseen things that keep you from living in the freedom that's already yours, and take brave, intentional steps toward the life you were made for. This is your space to reconnect with your authentic self and grow in freedom on purpose. Welcome to the Freedom Camp Podcast. By the end of this episode, my hope is that you will pick one thing God says is true about your identity and practice letting it sink in, not just mentally, but holistically, throughout your body, mind, soul, and spirit, throughout your lived experience. Knowing who God says you are cognitively and living from that truth experientially are two different things. God has already identified us. He has called us. He has redeemed us. He has made us whole. Our work isn't to earn identity. Rather, it's to learn how to receive the identity that we already have. So today, we're talking about the tension between the truth and the experience when it comes to our identity. There's often a gap between my lived experience of who I am and who God says that I am. For example, when I'm tempted to worry or I'm full on doing it, I know cognitively that God has said I'm free from worry and to trust Him and even to not worry. And yet experience has said, but bad stuff has happened before, so you should be worried. And even if you do worry, maybe you can do something that will then prevent that bad thing from happening. So the question becomes, so which voice is louder, experience or God? So I'm curious, you can journal, you can ponder, you can add it to the comments. Where do you notice a gap between what God says and what you experience when it comes to your identity? In Freedom Camp this week, we explored these questions in a great discussion. And I want to share them with you so that you can journal and or ponder and see what comes up for you. So the first question is, why does experience often have so much power in shaping our identity? What voices are louder in your life than God's truth? And what experiences have taught us a different story or a different identity? So I also notice that for me, with my identity, there's often this friction that's connected to time. And so I think of it as the difference between chronos time, which is like our watch, and it's connected to the natural realm, and it's connected to the here and now and the flesh and where we are experientially. And then there's kairos time. And kairos time is connected to the spirit realm. It's connected to eternity. It's connected to God saying that one day is like 1,000 years for Him, or vice versa. 1,000 years is like one day for Him. The point is, when God speaks to us about our identity, for example, we are forgiven. That is 100% true in the spirit realm now, and will be later. And at the same time, in this very moment, maybe I was just short with someone in my life. Maybe I have just done something that I would be well served to go ask that person to forgive me for. Maybe it's even against myself. Maybe it's even against God. In the natural realm, I may feel unforgiven, even based off of something that I did. Like I deserve to feel that way. I should feel that way. And yet also in the spirit realm, I am forgiven. And so there's this friction between these two things. We live in the natural, and yet we are part of the spirit realm. And I wonder, how often are we walking around in the natural while fully connected to the spirit, or vice versa? When we are fully in the spirit and we're walking around in the natural, what does that do to our identity? What does that do to things like being offended? What does that do to the way that we see ourselves and the way that we think of ourselves, which then impacts how we feel about ourselves, which then impacts the choices that we make, which then impacts the results that we get? So I hope that makes sense, that there is this connection slash disconnection between who we are in the spirit realm and who we may feel like in this moment. I know in the moment my body believes in the moment, and yet faith reconnects me to what's true beyond the moment. The other really cool thing about this is that God also says it takes faith the size of a mustard seed to move an entire mountain. And so we can ask God for that faith. We can ask God to help us to get into the place of faith, to get into the place of our spirit realm identity becoming true in the natural realm. And that's what we're going to do for the rest of this little podcast. So first, though, I want to get practical with some things that God has identified you with. And the invitation here is to receive what he says about you and let it become your lived experience. So I made this bookmark years ago, and it looks like a receipt. And it has all these different things about who God says that I am and you are, and where in the Bible that he says that. That's like the price. And ultimately, these things are things that Jesus died for us to embody. And the bookmark looks like a receipt because it is a receipt. It's been paid in full. Now, go walk ye in it type thing. I shared that receipt with the Freedom Campers this week, and we went through several of the things on the receipt. And so for the sake of time, we're just going to look at a few today for the podcast. So a few examples are things like we have a sound mind. We are accepted in the beloved. We are free from condemnation. We are precious and honored and loved. We are free from worry. We are healed. We are forgiven, and we are redeemed. So I'm curious, do these feel real to you? Do these feel known? Do these feel like your lived day-to-day experience? If they do, yay you. I am so excited. Please share in the comments what that feels like. I do not embody all of these day in and day out. And there's also a lot of them to embody. The receipt bookmark isn't even the fullness of it. So my encouragement is to pick one identity truth that God says about you, and to ask yourself, what would it look like to let this truth move through me? Spirit, mind, soul, and body. And then to also choose a way to help yourself to marinate in it, to help yourself to receive it, to soak it in. And I want this to be doable for everyone. So, do all of these if you have the capacity to, but ultimately do what works for you. And if you don't know, try them so that you can get a better feel for what really like helps to make it real for you. Some ideas, write it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror, put it on your computer, put it on the cupboard. I don't know, someplace that you're going to see it. Pray about it frequently, or at least once a day. Memorize a verse that supports it and speak it over yourself. So, for example, we'll use worry again. Say I am tempted to worry, and then I can say, oh, hang on. God, I thank you that your word says in Matthew 6:33, I think it is, that when I focus on you and your kingdom, that I am free from worry. I receive that now. Help me to focus on you and your kingdom. That's like making it personal for you. Journal about it. What does my life look like when I live from this, whatever that identity truth is? And then also, when you notice the opposite, gently return and remind yourself, oh, hang on. Nope, we're going with what the spirit realm says right now. We're going with what God says, not with what life has taught us. So this is not about shame, condemnation, guilt, striving, earning, none of that. This exercise is about scattering seed over the soil of your heart. And you are good soil. So when you scatter the seed over your heart, we want to let it soak in, we want to let it take root, and we want to let it start to grow. So I want to end with a little guided reflection, a little like receiving who God says that you are. And I want this to be ideally like a bathtub, a soaking, as in you don't need to do anything. Just be. Just be. And I'm going to speak some words over us, and we're just going to experience it and see what comes up. So first, we want to take a moment to settle. Maybe you want to get the wiggles out. You want to take one slow breath in and exhale. And so now I'm going to read a few truths about who God says that you are. And you don't even need to agree with them. And you don't need to force belief. A lot of this is just noticing what's happening inside of you as you hear them. So the first one is that you have a sound mind. Does that feel comforting? Or distant? Or crazy? Or somewhere between? You just notice and you just let it be whatever it is. This isn't the end of all things. We're just practicing. So you are accepted in the beloved. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove it. Notice what your body does with being accepted. What does your soul do? What does your spirit do? What does your mind do? You are precious, honored, and deeply loved by God. Let that wash over you wherever it lands. If part of you resists, that's okay. If part of you softens, that's okay too. We're just noticing. So you are free from condemnation. There is no shame in God's voice toward you. I encourage you to take an extra breath here. Breathe that in. Just a couple more. You are complete in Christ. There's nothing missing. There's nothing broken. Nothing disqualifies you. And notice what rises in you when you hear that. And you are seated in the heavenly realms with Christ. Even while you're here, maybe in your kitchen or your car or your living room, your spirit already belongs in a higher place. It's already there. And let that widen your perspective for a moment. And now ask yourself, which of these felt hardest to receive? Which brought even a tiny bit of relief? Which was the easiest to receive? There's no right answer. It's about awareness. It's about relationship. And if you like, you can ask God, which of these truths do you want me to sit with this week? And now just listen. You might get a word, a sense, an image, a scripture, a song, or nothing at all. And all of it is okay. Take one more slow breath in and exhale. And remember, we don't grow into these identities by striving. We grow into them by receiving what we already have and who we already are. So this week, my hope is that you don't try to become someone new, but rather you practice receiving who God says that you already are. You pick one truth and you soak in it and you allow it to wash over you and you grow closer in your spirit to who God says that you are. Thank you so much for listening to the Freedom Camp podcast. Thanks for listening to the Freedom Camp podcast, where we believe freedom is nurtured from within and grows when you tend to it. If this stirred something in you, let it take root this week and see what grows. And if you enjoyed this or found it meaningful, please give the gift of a review, share it with a friend, and leave a comment below. It helps us build this podcast community because we weren't meant to grow alone.